On the 22nd of September, 2022, the government of Japan walked into the currency market and, in a single day, spent roughly 2.8 trillion yen buying its own currency. It was the first time in 24 years that Japan had intervened to prop up the yen. The last time had been 1998. For more than 2 decades, the machine had sat idle, and now it was firing again because the yen had slid to a multi-decade low against the dollar. What does a government actually do when it intervenes like this? Where does the money come from? And why does it sometimes work for a day and fail over a year? This is how a currency defense really works from the inside. Why does this matter beyond Japan? Because almost every country with its own currency eventually faces the same tension. When a currency falls too fast, imports get more expensive and inflation bites. When it rises too fast, exporters suffer. Governments are tempted to reach for the intervention lever, but that lever runs on a finite tank of fuel: the nation's foreign exchange reserves. Understanding intervention means understanding that a central bank is not all-powerful in the currency market. It is a very large player spending a limited stockpile, and the market knows exactly how much is in the tank. Start with the mechanics. A currency's price is just supply and demand for that currency. To push the yen up, Japan's Ministry of Finance instructs the Bank of Japan to act as its agent and do one thing: sell US dollars from the reserves and buy yen with them. That buying pressure lifts the yen. To push a currency down instead, a country does the reverse, creating its own currency and selling it for foreign assets. The direction Japan needed in 2022 was the hard direction, because selling dollars to buy yen spends the reserve stockpile, and that stockpile does not refill itself. The yen had fallen to a 34-year low against the dollar by 2024, which tells you how strong the underlying pressure had become. So the real question is not whether a government can move the price for a day. It obviously can. The question is what happens next. Here is the machine, one block at a time. Block 1. Does the intervention change the amount of money in the domestic banking system? If the central bank offsets its currency operation with a matching move in bonds, so that domestic money supply stays put, that is called sterilized intervention. If it lets the money supply change, that is unsterilized. Unsterilized intervention is more powerful because it is really monetary policy in disguise, but it collides with the central bank's inflation goals. Most rich country intervention today is sterilized, which makes it weaker. Block 2. If sterilized intervention is weak, why do it at all? Because of the signaling channel. When a finance ministry spends trillions in an afternoon, it is broadcasting a message: we are watching this level and we are willing to make betting against us expensive. Traders who were pushing the currency one way now face a giant, deep-pocketed counterparty and some step back. Block 3. The catch and the quant wedge. Intervention leans against the wind. If the wind, meaning the fundamental forces like interest rate gaps between countries, keeps blowing the same way, the government is spending finite reserves to fight a force that refills itself every day. That is why a defense against fundamentals tends to slow a move rather than reverse it, and why intervention that works with fundamentals or alongside a policy change tends to stick. Look at the scale of what leaning against the wind actually costs. Across 2022, Japan intervened several times and spent a combined total reported at around 9.2 trillion yen. Then in 2024, after the yen hit that 34-year low, the Ministry of Finance confirmed it spent about 9.79 trillion yen, roughly $62 billion, on intervention between late April and late May alone. Enormous sums deployed by a sophisticated government, and yet the yen's broad direction was governed less by these operations than by the wide gap between Japanese and American interest rates underneath them. The interventions bought calmer, more orderly moves and punished the most aggressive speculators. They did not, by themselves, turn the tide. So the next time you read that a country has intervened to defend its currency, read it as a signal about pressure, not a prediction about price. Intervention is a government spending a finite reserve to lean against a market. It can smooth a disorderly move, punish one-sided bets, and buy time for policy to change. What it cannot easily do is overpower the fundamentals forever, because the reserves are limited and the fundamental forces are not. The useful lens is simple. Is the intervention working with the underlying forces or against them? That tells you whether it is likely to hold or merely to delay. If you want more breakdowns of the machinery underneath the market, subscribe for the next one. This has been educational content, not financial advice.